My name's Paul Balacky. I've been with Thorogood since '91, and I'm a principal consultant. The session today is relatively short. I do flit around quite a few different technologies because obviously we're trying to show this across a number of mobile devices. But if you do have any questions, please raise them on the chat panel, as the introducer sort of indicated. And if we get a chance, we'll look to respond at the end of this session. But if we can't, we'll certainly get back to you soon after. Okay, so we'll look to explore the capabilities of the current Datazen toolset, and I'll take you through the various components. We'll investigate how Datazen is architected now, and we'll look at what's happening going forward. For those of you on the call not familiar with Thorogood, just a quick word from our sponsors. We're an independent professional services firm, and we specialise in the delivery of business intelligence and analytics solutions. Established in '87, with over 28 years' experience of delivering to customers across insurance, banking, consumer goods, pharma and healthcare sectors. And we serve those customers globally through teams from the US, UK and our Indian offices. So we partner with a range of vendors, key vendors in the BI market, BI analytics space. But of particular relevance today, today's topic is our partnership with Microsoft, where we're a gold partner and a member of the Business Intelligence and Advanced Analytics Products Advisory Board, which gives us an early sight of some of these products and an indication of where they're going with the product. So here's a first look at Datazen, for those of you who've not seen it at all. The main screen here is the Datazen publisher. It's where you author products, author dashboards, and we'll be looking at this in more detail in a few moments. There are three apps available, one for each of the sort of major device operating environments, so Windows, iOS, Android, and you can also access the dashboards via HTML5. So today I'll show it via a Windows phone, via an iPad with iOS, and we'll quickly look at HTML5. In terms of its positioning, so where does Datazen fit? In particular with Power BI. In the slide, the box software here implies sort of you own the software, so you manage, you install it, so it's on-premise, as opposed to the Power BI product, which currently is software as a service, cloud-based. And what Datazen provides is a rapid, agile approach for implementing mobile solutions, and hopefully you'll get a sense of that as we go through the presentation. In terms of the Datazen product set, there are three main components really. There's the Datazen Enterprise Server, so this is where we would publish our dashboards. It's where we create our data connections to enterprise data sources. You'll see that you can connect to local data sources, but in essence where we're connecting to our SQL Server, analysis services, or another database, we'd do it through the Enterprise Server. So that hosts those components. We have the Publisher product, wrong way around. We have the Publisher app, which is where we build and develop our dashboards. So it's our authoring tool. It's the UI for putting together our dashboards and connecting to those data sources. And then finally we have the viewer apps, and these are native apps for the various devices. Let's go on really and look at the product itself. And what I'll do is I'll go through a series of steps. So initially I'll demonstrate Datazen dashboards on a Windows phone. Then I'll move on to the Datazen server and I'll create a data view. So that's essentially a view of data from one of our data sources. I'll then drop into the Datazen Publisher app. So there I'll create a new dashboard. And what I want to do with that dashboard is link it into the dashboards that I'll show you in step one. So I'm going to show you some dashboards in step one. Step three, I'll create a new dashboard using our new data view, and I'll link that into those existing dashboards. And then finally, I'll show the completed sort of set of dashboards via the iPad. Again, you get a sense of looking at this on different devices. So it's a Windows phone, it's my phone. And what we're looking at here, let's just try the browser. So I'm going to use Internet Explorer there. I'm going to select that in the middle there. So I'm going to connect to the Datazen server, and that's the link, via the browser. So this is HTML5, just so you get an opportunity to compare and contrast. I'll log in, and we load. And what we've got, if I just scroll them up, you'll see we've got a series of dashboards on my Datazen server. You can also look at any KPIs that are published. So these are a series of KPIs. Let's drop back down to the dashboards. And if I select a particular dashboard, let's take TG Bank. So the data set here is a dummy data set based on banking data. So what we're looking at here is a dashboard which is showing period end risk-weighted assets, RWAs, RAROC, debit period end, credit period end. So these are balances, and then we've got margin on those balances. So it's a simple dashboard, and I can select from my drop-down, whether it's commercial banking, large corporates, global, financial institutions, and trade finance. Let's just select global, and the dashboard refreshes as you'd expect. So that's looking at it on a browser. And if I just rotate the phone, let's get this on landscape. Landscape. Is it going to come back? There we are. So that's the view on landscape. It's a slightly modelled view, actually. But let me scroll up and down. Okay, good. So that's looking at it through the browser. Let's have a look at it through the Datazen app. So there's the Datazen app in the corner there. I'll just select that. It'll take me straight in. So it's got my credentials already in place. And if I just swipe across, we can see some dashboards. And there we go, the same dashboards we were looking at a minute ago. I've got two servers set up on this particular app, so I'm looking at a number of servers. But and also I can look at activity. So this is where there's been essentially similar to the chat panel. It's essentially commentary around the dashboards, related items. So in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose that capital adequacy ratio KPI. So TG Bank KPIs. If I just select that, brings up, gives me a little bit more detail on any conversation that there's been around that. And if I then select the detail on the top there, you'll see I've got a connected dashboard. So what I'm going to do is drill in on that dashboard. So really just, we could do all of this as part of through the browser. I'm really just showing it through the phone as well. And exactly the same sort of logic. I've got my selection at the top there. Let's just try large corporates at this point, and it all changes and reflects. And again, if I change this so that it becomes landscape from portrait, you'll see I get a slightly different view. So I have a grid appear on the right hand side, which gives me a set of financial lines, KPIs, whether they're up or down, red, amber, green, right type analysis. So what Datazen allows you to do, as you can see from this, is essentially craft the dashboard so that if I'm portrait, I get one view. I'm just switching it to portraits. If I get portrait, I get one view, and if I'm landscape, I get a different. You can choose to have the same view in both, as long as it works in both, obviously. So that's the only constraint on that. What it also allows me to do is I can drill from this particular dashboard. So if I select period end RWAs in the top left-hand corner there, so I'm just going to select that. What it's doing is it's drilling through to another dashboard, and what this is giving me is the period end RWA trends. So that's just the timeline. Again, I can rotate. So different navigation aid at the top there. I've got the time bar, so I can select. What I'm using is my finger there just to select the month that I'm interested in. Let's just do that. I can widen that up that way. And the chart refreshes as you expect. I can take last year, last 6 months, and you'll see the chart refreshes as you'd expect. Again, I can go back to landscape. So we've got those two dashboards, and what I want to do then is extend those dashboards. I'm going to create a new dashboard and link it in. Yeah? And the first thing I'm going to do before I create my dashboard is create my data set. And the way I do that is I log into the Datazen server. And I'm doing this via my browser on my laptop, which is hopefully what you can see. I'll just do that and I log in. So this is the Datazen server control panel, and it allows us to configure various aspects of the Datazen server, as you'd expect. So I've got things like configuration, authentication, server users. There's a way of branding the product, so you can have your own sort of company branding. What I'm interested in here in particular is the data sources. So let me select data sources. And what we see here is a collection of data sources available that have been set up. I could create a new data connection. What I'm interested in is the TG Bank data connection. Let's just have a quick look, make sure everything's in order. So I'm just going to test that connection. Successful connection, good, first stage. So what we've got here is obviously the data catalog, so what I'm connecting to, the data source, what type of connection is it, the initial catalog, what databases, then user ID and password. So I've tested the connection, I'm fine with that. And that's essentially what you do, is you go ahead and create your own connection. What I'm going to do now is look at the data sets within that data connection. So I've got two data sets created, net interest income by customer and personalised RWA. What I want to do now is create a new data view. And the way I do that is I'll click on New Data View. And you'll see there are a collection of attributes here. So I give the data view a name. I then need to specify the refresh frequency. And if I just click that drop down, you'll see that we can have it as a one-time refresh. So that's where the data will be pulled out of the data source into the data view and cached on the data server. And we could do that one time, or we could do it every few minutes, hours, daily, weekly, or customize. Or I can select real time. Just for the moment, I'll select it as one time. But just because I want to talk about the next two options. So we've got allow client caching. So if I'm going to refresh on a schedule, Datazen allows us to cache that data onto the client. So the client can take the data and work offline if it's a scheduled refresh. If I select real time, you'll see that client cache at that point, client data caching is disabled. Which sort of makes sense really, because I've now got a real-time connection, which essentially means every time I query the dashboard, I'm going to go back to the data source and refresh the data set. Personalise each member, it's a way of refining that data connection so that I only see the data I'm allowed to see. It's a way of refining it. So it essentially allows for the username object to be used in the SQL. So I'm going to leave it at real time. Let me just give it let's give it a name. Webcast DB. Okay. I'm going to cut and drop some SQL into that. So it's a very simple piece of SQL, simple select statements. I'll just copy that and drop it into my data query form. There is no data query editor within Datazen, so you'll need to develop your SQL offline or out of Datazen. Once you're happy with it, you can then drop it in, and hopefully, if I press next, we'll get a sample set of the data. So it's gone off, connected to TG Bank as a data source, and it's brought back the information. Very simple queries. I've got period, financial line, business group, and then 5 industry sectors, giving me the period end RWAs. And I'll just finish at that point. Good. So Webcast DV now, that data view is now available to me. And what I want to do now is use that data view in my new dashboard. Right. So to access the Datazen publisher, I'm running here Windows 8, and I've gone into the Windows 8 sort of Metro screen, and you'll see in the centre there Datazen. So it's available as an app in 8. There is also a Windows 7 version. When we last did the presentation, the Windows 7 version was in preview. It's now been released as an application, so that can be downloaded into 7. I select the publisher, we connect, and what you'll see is we've got a series of dashboards. So these are all dashboards here. And these are on local folders, so these are working folders that I'm using. I've also got connection to the various servers that I have connection to. I've only got one here at the moment. And these were the dashboards I was looking at earlier. So that TG Bank KPI dashboard is what we were looking at earlier. What I want to do now is create a new dashboard. So let me do that. So right-click and create. As I go to create a dashboard, I can either use clean environment, empty dashboard, or I can start from an existing dashboard. In this instance, I'm just going to start from an empty dashboard. Okay. Once the dashboard's up, you've essentially got a grid, which is the main UI. And on the left-hand side, we've got a collection of visuals. And this represents the full list of visuals. So you'll need, the important thing to understand is you'll need to work within that group. There's no opportunity to add other visualizations or other types of navigators. We've essentially got this set. And if I just scroll down on that, you'll see we've got gauges, we've got charts, series of maps, and some data grids. Okay, the maps you can extend actually. It's the one part of the product you can add in new maps and new classifications of areas and that sort of thing. So you'll see we've got 3 navigators, and those are time navigation, so the ability to select time, scorecard grid, and selection list, so the drop down in effect. Got a series of gauges, and we've got 11 there, 10 charts, 3 maps, and 3 data grids. Okay, let's just have a look, see how Datazen works. So if I take a gauge, drag it in, it will fit it essentially snaps to the grid, and as I drag that across, you'll see it will redraw the actual gauge in this instance, and it does that quite nicely. Yeah, it rearranges the gauge and works to fit the space that we're looking at. Yeah, so that's quite nice. And if I just run preview, there's my gauge. Okay, so very simple. So let's start building our dashboard out, and first thing I'm going to do is drag on the time navigator, and I'll bring that across. Very nice. What I'll do is I'll just select, so it's represented by months. Yeah? Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag on the category chart. Let's just have a look, see what this looks like. There we go. And you'll see at the bottom here I've got the opportunity to change the title of the chart. So for the moment I can, what should we call it? Bar, and I'll come back to sort of that in more detail. Let's just have that horizontal, and let's just run that and see what that looks like. Good, and you see I can select, and the chart will change. So we're essentially starting to prototype, and sort of bring together our dashboard. I'll bring in the totals chart, just drag that in. And there we go. And again, just run that, just have a quick look at what that looks like. So that's fine. That's sort of what I want to do, really. That's all I want in this particular instance. Okay. At the moment, what Datazen allows us to do is it allows us to create the dashboard. We can see there's interaction. When I run to preview, I get the time changing the various charts. And what Datazen has done in the background is it's created this simulated data. So what we've got is for the totals chart, we're using simulated data, and off the simulated data, it's using metrics 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's using those 5 columns to generate that particular chart. If we look at the stacked bar, it's using the same set of simulated data. Category is the stack. And the metrics that we're currently using is 1, 2. What if I do? If I just plug those 3, I think I plugged in another 2. You'll see those are eagle-eyed. I added on another 2 of the metrics. So it's important to understand what's happening here. So essentially, Datazen is giving us a steer as to how the data should look to represent those particular charts. So it's important that when I create my data view, it has this type of layout if I'm going to satisfy that view and that view and my grid. I mean, my grid, interestingly, the time navigator, it uses the metrics to sort of profile the time frame. So metric 1, if I run the preview again, this is metric 1 across time, yeah, and then all, so it's sort of thumbnailed. But if I, just to show you that, if I now select to put them all on, and I run that preview, yep, it's showing all 5 of them on the grid. So it's quite a nice feature to have actually. And again, just on that, in terms of layout, I can choose to let's go to area. We get that sort of view. Okay, so relatively quick development of a dashboard, but all based on simulated data. So what I need to do now is add my own data in. And the way I do that is I select Add Data. You've got 2 choices essentially. I can add local data, but in an Excel format, or I can connect to the Datazen server and pull down the data. And what I'll do is select the Datazen server. I'm going to select Contoso. And there's my TG Bank that we were looking at when we looked earlier on the server. Click on that. There's my Webcast DV. So there's my data view for the Webcast. What I'm going to do is import that. And it's brought it in. And you'll notice that it looks, in terms of format and layout, exactly what I had before as for simulated data. So this is my data connection, and this is a simulated table. Yeah? So I've used the fact that it's... So if we take the time series, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Webcast DV, data view, and I'm going to select all of the relevant columns. So keep in mind, it's not a sort of standard fact table, or third normal form, or it's a particular layout of data to satisfy a particular set of charts, and keep that in mind. So if we go to stacked bar, I'm going to change again my data connection. I'm going to choose the business groups, and I'm going to choose again the various areas, sectors, and then finally on the totals chart, I'm just going to select all of the relevant data sets, sectors relating to the banking data. There we go. So here we go now. So we've got a data view based on our data. Sorry, got a dashboard based on our data view. And what we're looking at here are all of the relevant breakdowns of business across the various banking areas. Okay, very nice. Let's just change the title. So Webcast today, because I've got no creativity in me whatsoever. Good. Let's have a look at the layout again. So what can we do with the layout? Well, we can change headers. That's fine. I can change the colour layout. See what some of these look like. I'm going to go with green because it's our colour. So green will be my backdrop. You can, again, like I say, you can brand these dashboards, but it's a manual process. There's no wizard for it. It's something you'll need to do outside of the product. And also you'll need to keep in mind that if you're going to brand, you need to brand across iOS, Windows, and Android, and HTML, just to make sure they're all in line and in sync. Okay, so that's the dashboard. I'm pleased with that. I've got one last thing I want to do, which is I want to recast this now if I'm looking at it via a tablet or a phone. So what I'll do is for the tablet, which is, and again what we're talking about here is orientation. So the master view is the landscape. What I want to say is, okay, on a tablet, if I'm looking at it across portrait, I want to reorganize it. What I'll do is just to demonstrate what's happening here. So these are the views that I had on my dashboard. And I'm just dropping those in so that you'll see that when we come to look at it on the iPad, once I rotate the iPad, I'll get a slightly different view. Okay. And similarly, I would recast it for the phone as well. But let's just put that on top this time. This one down below. So if you don't define these, what you'll get is the master view. It will try and squeeze the master view across, in a portrait layout. Just run that. There we go. So that's what it looks like on the phone. Good. Okay. Let's just go back to master. Okay. So I think I've completed. I'm happy with that as a view. I've got my various different charts, so I'm going to save this now. So I'll right click and I'll save locally first off. So I'm just going to save it as Webcast today, and then I'm going to publish it up onto the server. Let me do that. What I'll do is I'll make sure I put it into my banking group. That's the server TGCL SQL 02. So this is actually hosted on Azure at the moment. So although it's an on-site thing, we've got our server on Azure. And let me just publish that up. Okay, smash it. So now I've got that view. What I want to do is link it in with the dashboards that I was showing you earlier. So let me drop out. Let's go home. And I'm going to link it into this time series dashboard. So my RWA time series. So I'm going to edit. Hopefully you can see this. Good stuff. So that's the view that we were looking at before. And what I want to do is now I'm going to create my drill through. You'll see at the bottom here for the chart, I've got drill through target. I can either go to a custom URL or I can link to a dashboard, which is what I'm going to do. Be careful to make sure you do link to the dashboard that's been published up to the server. So Webcast today, that's the one that we've just published. So if I click to that, what I'll do is I'll just link in the start time. So what that allows to do, hopefully, is that when I select a time on my time series and I drill through, it will carry that selection through to the source. The target dashboard. Okay, good. Let's have a look at this then and see what it looks like. Oh yeah, sorry. I haven't published it. So let me publish that up. So I've made the change and I need to get that published. There we go. So touch wood now, that's been published up. I'll just make sure I save it locally as well. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so I've come back to the desktop, and what I want to do now is show you the view on the iPad. So here we go. I'm going to switch now to another piece of technology. Just mirror this. There we go. So I'm using Air Server and AirPlay. Let's just come down. So hopefully you can see that. Yeah, good. So I'm up on the iPad. Let me just scroll across. And you'll see I've got my Datazen icon in the top right-hand corner there. I'll just select that. That's what it takes me in. Good. Very good. I've got a bunch of key metrics, so I must use my mouse. So let's have a look at the dashboards on the bottom now. So this is on the iPad. I'm just scrolling up. So these are all the ones that I'm scrolling through here. These are all from the Datazen site. So these are demo views that they've created. Let's just keep going up. We'll come back to there's the dashboard I've just created. Let's go through the TG Bank KPI dashboard again, just so it's this thing. Let's straighten up. Lovely. Okay. So there's a familiar dashboard with our financial lines and our bunch of KPIs. And I can select. That's all very good. So let me select the period end RWAs, the link at the top left-hand corner there. Oops. Let's go. Okay. There we go. And I've come through to my time series. And then I can make a selection at the top there. So I've gone from August to October. There we go. I can use the dashboard. Let me just see if hopefully if I click, it takes me through this time. Yes. And it's taken through the selection. So we've got August to October. And we're now looking at our newly created dashboard. Yeah. And I can move those. So let's have a look now. So if I rotate this, all being well, I'll get the portrait view and we should see it recast. There we go. So the time banner is in the centre, and we've now got the stack bar on top and the totals chart on the bottom. Excellent. Okay. And just recap what we've seen. So I've gone to we started off on the Windows phone, and I was able to show you two dashboards and how they linked and some of the navigation that was available around those dashboards. We then dropped into the Datazen server through the browser. So I went back onto my laptop, we went into the browser, connected to the Datazen server, and we created a data view in one of our data sources connected to a SQL database. We then dropped into Datazen Publisher, the app, and there I created a new dashboard using the new data view. I then went into an existing dashboard and created a link between that new dashboard and that existing dashboard and our new dashboard. And then I went onto the iPad and I was able to show you what that looked like on the iPad. Good. Okay. So current data connections, and the thing about Datazen is it is current and future really, because things are starting to move quite quickly. So currently we were able to connect locally to Excel. On the Datazen server, we've got Microsoft's suite of databases. We've also got a generic ODBC, so from other database connections. We've got Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, and generic XML web services. So, but that's the extent of the connections really. So if it was, it's not on that list. You're really trying to use the generic ODBC or web services. The current Datazen architecture. Well, we've looked at the Datazen components. So we've got the publisher and the server and the apps. But on the server side, we've got sort of data acquisition services, web application, shared cache instances, and the key there is the ability to essentially locate some of these services on different servers, so you can scale out. Really, that's the idea of that. So a typical configuration, would be to put the web application and the core services on separate machines. Remember, with a data connection, we can have either real-time or scheduling or scheduled access. In terms of security, Datazen utilises either Active Directory or ADFS server or core service repository. It implements data encryption at all levels. So if I'm working offline and I've cached data onto my mobile device, that will be encrypted. Similarly, data that's stored up on the Datazen server should be encrypted and can be encrypted. Trying to think if there's anything more. And client-side caching allows for offline dashboard viewing, so it's quite an important consideration. Okay, let's carry on down. So the future of Datazen, and it's become a lot clearer and is pretty much, the first public preview is available now. So the 2016 release of SQL Server reporting services, the aim is to provide an end-to-end mobile BI experience on any device. And so what Microsoft are doing, they're adding support for mobile reports to reporting services for on-premise implementations. And the way they're doing that is they're merging Datazen into the reporting services framework. So, and I'll explain that in a bit more. Well, in fact, this means that reporting services will be able to support two types of reports. So we've got the paginated, or the existing type of reporting services report, but also mobile reports. And those mobile reports will be based on the Datazen technology. The new Datazen Publisher tool has been rebadged, and it's the Microsoft SQL Server Mobile Report Publisher. That's a mouthful. And like I say, it's currently available as public release 1. And the big difference, and hopefully I'll be able to show some of this, is that the Datazen server is being replaced by the SQL Server reporting, by reporting services, excuse me. Let's just have a look at that quickly. So this is the existing landscape, as described earlier. So what's happening is, I'll just do that quickly. So the report publisher becomes the SQL Server Mobile Report Publisher, and the enterprise environment gets replaced by SQL Server reporting services. So, and what we're seeing here, that this particular image is the new portal for reporting services, which will contain KPIs, sort of Datazen like KPIs, the mobile reports, so those sort of Datazen reports, and then at the bottom there you can see the paginated reports, i.e. the standard RS reports that we're so familiar with, and then the standard apps will still be in place. What does the mobile reporting front end look like? It looks like Datazen. So they've literally lifted it and dropped it in. There are some additions and some changes, and like I say, fundamentally under the covers, we're now going to be pointing at reporting services rather than the Datazen server. So I'm going to try and show this. So I've got a VM, and which is running Windows 10, and within Windows 10, I've got there's the mobile SQL Server mobile report publisher, and if I right-click and I'll just run it as administrator. Yes, I'm happy to run. So this is the new Datazen, which looks very similar to the old Datazen. And if at the moment the navigators, the gauges, the charts, and the maps and the data grids are as per the current implementation of Datazen. And if I take the time, navigator, just drag that on, draw that across. Yeah. And again, I could change that so it's just particularly. Sorry, it's a bit small. But if we take that gauge example again, we drop that in. Yeah. And the same sort of behaviour. So it recasts itself as I change it on the grid. So at the moment, as far as I can tell, it is just that. They've just lifted it in and brought it across. We've now got these icons at the top, so rather than right-click save or right-click publish, that's all done here. The one key difference you'll see here really is that if I go to data, I've still got my simulated data, and that's quite interesting. That's all still there. But if I now want to add data, you'll notice that the key difference here is I've still got my local Excel, but the data connection now, the server connection, will be SSRS. And what that does, obviously, it opens up all of the data sources that are available to SSRS. And the logic's very much the same as it is with an RS report. We have a data source, we have a data view, data set, and we'll be connecting to those data sets and bringing that data into Datazen. So you can see even the colouring is still Datazen. I haven't changed it all, but the address here will be an RS address, and that's the one bit at the moment that was still struggling to get going, so I can't actually show you that. Let's just have a look at the on the website. Just go to reporting services. So this all looks very similar, but we are able to preview the new reporting services, and if I just click on that, so there's the portal. There's my KPI and paginated reports, and the idea will be obviously that I can then publish in my Datazen reports into that portal. Okay, that's as far as I can go, but it's pretty much confirmed. So the question is when will the full release of 2016 become available? And I'm not sure of. We suspect potentially the middle of this year, but not sure. Certainly not confirmed. So key points to take away. So mobile reporting has traditionally been a third-party sort of area, really, while Microsoft have lagged. But I think with the rapid development of Power BI and now the purchase of Datazen and the integration really of those into the stack, they're sort of moving on a pace really. There's a recognition within Microsoft that they need to deliver across all devices, not just Windows. Just for those on the line, again, Datazen is effectively free, so they're not selling Datazen. You can't really go out and purchase it. But if you've got SQL Server Enterprise Edition with software assurance, you can download, install, and start using it. I should say at the moment it's not clear what the upgrade path will be for existing Datazen applications. So if you wanted to now use Datazen, it's not clear what the migration path would be into the new environment. I mean, what you can see is that the UI is very similar, but the binaries that underpin that, I think, must be the same. But again, I can't. It's not clear to me how you would move a currently existing Datazen dashboard into the new RS environment, and of course, because you need the data sources and et cetera, et cetera. But the future is a lot clearer, and we expect things to move quickly now that is the case. That's what's happening. Okay, we're right up against the timeline. Just for your information, really, upcoming events on the 14th We've got Powerful Pairings, Tableau and Microsoft BI. It's been very popular in the UK. We're running a workshop in the US, so hopefully those stateside can get to that. On the 19th, we've got Exploring the New BI Landscape. We'll touch on this subject area more in that. I mean, it will be part of a much wider discussion, but we'll certainly touch on the Datazen and RS aspects of the new landscape. On the 26th, we've got Tableau to Salesforce. So again, just reporting out of Salesforce and reporting within Salesforce using Tableau. And on the 9th of Feb, another webcast, Field Force Reporting, which again we'll be demonstrating Datazen, or some aspects of Datazen, but we'll be considering it in light of other mobile reporting options. So be a bit more of a comparison there between the mobile offerings available to the Field Force. Okay, I'm conscious of the time, which we've run right up against. So thank you to all on the call. I hope you found it interesting, and you know, there were aspects of it that were valuable to you. All right, guys. Thank you, and talk again. Cheers now.